Okay, we're back with Gretchen Morgenson from the New York Times talking with us about the big development today in New York, the subpoena issued for TIAA and their sales practices. Gretchen broke the news today. Tell us a little bit more about what this means both in New York and nationally.
Well, TIAA, as you know, Kate, is the largest administrator of retirement accounts for professors, science researchers, a lot of people who work in nonprofits, 15,000 institutions. And so any problem that TIAA has is really, really expansive and large. So the New York Attorney General is looking into questions about the firm's sales practices. Now, the firm holds itself out as being a, a, um, that does the right thing for them at all times and kind of disconnect from what the company has been characterizing itself for many years as having its clients' best interests at heart. The sales practices in question would be the same kinds of things you see on Wall Street, pushing clients into in-house products that generate more money for the broker and for the firm, instead of taking account of what the client really needs and making sure that that's where they're placed as far as an investment advice is concerned. So it's really a disconnect between the TIAA reputation of being a nonprofit heritage company that is always has its clients' best interest at heart, or whether it is really just like any other Wall Street firm.
And is this really an issue with reputation? Again, when the finger pointing and the whistleblower lawsuits were filed prior to the subpoena issued by the New York Attorney General, we reached out to Seth Magaziner here, the Rhode Island General Treasurer, to ask him about implications here in Rhode Island because, as we know, there are close to $700 million in assets in Rhode Island's pension fund in TIAA. He made mention of the products that Rhode Island is in, and I'll just reiterate what he had said. He said they reached out to TIAA. They found out that employees who work on Rhode Island's plans are not compensated based on cross-selling products, and therefore the situation does not apply to Rhode Island. Is this a fact, a true statement? Should Rhode Islanders be concerned about these investments in the particular areas that they are?
Well, I think clients in all should be worried about this, and I think actually Mr. Magaziner should really do a little bit more investigation into this to assure himself and the people of Rhode Island who are in these plans that in fact what TIAA is saying is correct. It sort of jive with what I have been told by many employees, current and former, at the firm, that really it is a high pressure sales organization. And so I would be a little bit wary of that kind of a statement and want to do my own investigation if I were Mr. Magaziner.
What do we expect now out of New York? Again, the subpoena issued today, broken by you down at the New York Times. What do we expect for a time frame? Are we going to see things moving forward weeks, months? How long is this going to take?
Well, it's a and I think those things take a lot of time. There are, of course, a lot of layers at TIAA. It's a very complex organization, as many of these financial firms are. It's not going to be easy for them to really get to the bottom of some of these practices. So I'm not anticipating a quick turnaround on this, but I do think that the story has kind of taken off on social media. I think a lot of TIAA customers are concerned, and so to the degree that I can continue to follow it, I certainly will.
And here in Rhode Island, of course, as you mentioned, continuing to ask General Treasurer Seth Magaziner again about both Rhode Island's investments and what we see moving forward with TIAA.
I think you definitely have to keep on it because it is a question, and if they're brand new to the firm, that's very interesting because it could be that they're starting down a path that these Rhode Island account holders don't want to go down.
And I'll just reiterate what the treasurer had said. TIAA has been the state's defined contribution provider since 2012, and the 457 provider since July 2017. So the latter, again, is a very recent contract with TIAA. Both are on 5-year contract agreements. I think we'll continue to be keeping a close eye on it here in Rhode Island.
Well, good for you, Kate. I'm glad you're on the story.
I appreciate your Skyping and Gretchen down from the New York Times. I'm sure we'll talk moving forward. We'll let you go back to the task at hand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone, Gretchen Morgenson, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist down at the New York Times, today broke the story. The New York Attorney General has issued subpoenas for TIAA and their sales practices in the state of New York. Now, Gretchen has been writing about TIAA in recent weeks. There have been whistleblower lawsuits filed against the company for their sales practices. Now, as Go Local has reported, Rhode Island has close to $700 million in assets in TIAA. I will again reiterate what Treasurer Magaziner had said prior to today. Again, when the New York Times article, the first one came out, they reached out to TIAA. They said that employees who work on Rhode Island plants are not compensated based on cross-selling the TIAA products, and therefore the situation does not apply to Rhode Island. But as people look closely, again, to see what happens, especially from a legal standpoint, we'll continue to follow whether or not it might have implications for where the state has investments in TIAA here in Rhode Island. So I appreciate Gretchen being able to Skype in down from the New York Times. Again, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter breaking the big story down there today. Appreciate her bringing it right here to Go Local Live in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.